Well, turning now to the legal battle over the Trump administration's move to deport a Columbia University student and pro-Palestinian activist. Protesters are demanding the release of Mahmoud Khalil, while President Trump warns his arrest is the first of many. Caitlin Burke has more.
As a grad student, Mahmoud Khalil is in the country on a green card. Last year, though, he helped lead pro-Palestinian protests at Columbia, actions the Trump administration believes to be aligned with Hamas, a designated terror organization.
Our main demand, which is divestment from the Israeli occupation, there's an impasse in that.
Khalil became one of the most visible campus activists last year, acting as a negotiator for students who erected a tent encampment on Columbia's campus. Now his lawyer says he's being held at a Louisiana detention facility due to President Trump's executive orders prohibiting anti-Semitism.
They've invoked this broad, vague immigration authority that in theory allows, with due process, the removal of someone based on a certification of the Secretary of State that they're compromising national security interests. This is a preposterous and dangerous extension of that authority, and it's basically meant to remove spies, not individuals engaged in human rights activism.
Mahmoud Khalil was an individual who was given the privilege of coming to this country to study at one of our nation's finest universities and colleges. And he took advantage of that opportunity, of that privilege, by siding with terrorists.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked Khalil's deportation while the case plays out in court.
His speech is absolutely protected by the Constitution, and it should be chilling to everyone that the United States government could punish or try to deport someone because they disapprove of the speech they're engaged in.
Still, Trump says more arrests are coming, writing on Truth Social, quote, "If you support terrorism, including the slaughtering of innocent men, women, and children, your presence is contrary to our national and foreign policy interests, and you are not welcome here."
This is an individual who organized group protests that not only disrupted college campus classes and harassed Jewish American students and made them feel unsafe on their own college campus, but also distributed pro-Hamas propaganda, flyers with the logo of Hamas.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio writing on X, quote, "We will be revoking the visas and/or green cards of Hamas supporters in America so they can be deported." Mark Caleb Smith, the director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University, tells CBN News this case brings up the larger question of how much authority we want to put in the hands of the executive branch.
I understand at some level we might be sitting here thinking, of course we're against someone who espouses support for an organization that we generally do see as terrorists, but think through what this would mean for another president from another party or with a different ideology who might have a different approach in defining what terrorism or terrorist activity really is. And so broadening that amount of power could lead to some really severe abuse.
A hearing for Khalil is scheduled for later today, and his attorney has requested he be returned to New York while the case plays out. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. Gordon, back to you.
Well, I'm all for free speech, and free speech includes speech that you absolutely hate. And everyone has a right to their opinion. Everybody has a right to free expression. Everybody has a right to free assembly. But let me remind you what happened at Columbia University. The president of that university issued a call for the New York police to come and intervene. And it's interesting the wording that was used: a clear and present danger. This isn't just speech. There was violence on that campus, and there were calls to violence. There were calls to support a terror organization that was in charge of Gaza, that launched a horrific attack against Israel and was holding U.S. citizens as hostages. This individual is a graduate now of Columbia University. They're no longer a student. And so why should we have, student protests? He's not a student anymore. He led an uprising, and he took over buildings, and he urged violence, against Jewish students of that same university who said, we're no longer safe here. Well, in my view, that's no longer a speech issue. That is a violence issue. And when you do that kind of thing, when you take over university buildings and and you destroy property and you threaten violence, well, no longer is it speech. You've committed a crime. And now is it proper for the State Department to say you're no longer welcome here? Well, the courts are going to have to rule on this. Again, I'm all for free speech, but in my view, this isn't speech.
Are miracles real? Let's investigate.
A lot of skeptics will say, well, miracles are impossible. Why? Because they violate the laws of nature. You can't violate the laws of nature.
I looked at my hand that was clutched. I said, hand move.
We got the 21-25.
Hallelujah! He's dead. It's over. I said, shock him one more time.